Hello, I'm Rick Bayshard, and thank you for visiting my channel. Today I want to talk about the course's teachings regarding special relationships. And relationships are some of the biggest tools the ego uses to keep us stuck, to prevent us from looking within. And it's important that we understand how these work and the course's definition of special relationships, because it will be easier for us to see how we operate, and it'd be easier for us, at least intellectually, to understand why we want to forgive ourselves and the people around us. Now, there are two fundamental types of relationship the course speaks about. One is the special hate relationship, and one is the special love relationship. Now, they look quite different, but the truth is they are basically different sides of the same coin. They serve the same purpose. They're both really hateful relationships, except one we call love. And I will speak more specifically about special love relationships in the next video. But special hate relationships are pretty clear and easy to understand as we begin to understand what the course is saying regarding its teachings and our self-hate and so on. Now, I think it's also important to understand that a relationship is a relationship is a relationship. And we obviously have relationships with people, but we have relationships with everything. Our pets, our cars, our jobs, and it's good to know that all of these can be teaching opportunities, these relationships. But of all the relationships we have in this world, it's the relationships we have with others and the relationships we have with our bodies that are our biggest classrooms, because they invariably make us look and push the most buttons. Now, regarding special hate relationships, what we want to remember is that, pulling in the ego's metaphysics, is at the mind level, when all of this seemed to have occurred, part of us, as we stepped away and projected out into a world to run from the guilt and the fear of what we thought we had done, we come into this world, and this guilt and this fear and basically this self-hate. Because on one level, at the mind level, we think we're obviously very terrible people. We've killed God technically within this dream. We've taken him, put him, murdered him, and in order to get our own independence, our own autonomy, because within the dream, that's what we wanted. But that's all been repressed and denied, and that's one reason why the ego has made the world. There's been a veil that has fallen, and we're unaware of this self-hate. It's instrumental with Freud's teachings on the collective unconscious, as far as, recognizing that everybody who comes into this world, even the newest baby, has a fully adapted ego. Mommy, you got to feed me. I mean, it's always about neediness and so on. They might look innocent, but remember, the very fact that we're in a body is a demonstration that we've bought into the ego's thought system. So now, going into the special hate relationships, and because it is relatively black and white with respect to what we do here, this self-hate that I mentioned earlier, that we come into this world with, this guilt that everybody has, invariably seeps out of us in ways that we're kind of unaware of, not necessarily conscious of. But we have to do something with this self-hate. We don't want to think it's us. We want to be rid of it. And again, going into Freud's teachings of projection, what we do is we take this self-hate, this self-loathing, and we project that onto everything around us. And so the world invariably ends up being that canvas. If we realize psychologically what we're doing, we can see all the self-hate that we have, that we projected onto everybody and everything. And so when we have people in our life that get under our skin, and we often sometimes feel that we're justified in hating them, we're judging them as less, what we're really doing is projecting our own self-hate onto them and saying, these people are the problem. They're the ones who's bad. It's not me. Look how manipulative that person is. Look what this person has done. How how cruel they are, how they've killed people, they manipulate, they're insulting. But of course people behave that way. We all have the capacity to behave that way, maybe in different forms, but when we behave that way, when we are cruel to each other, in part we're doing that as a way of elevating ourselves. It's important for us to understand, of course, anybody's poor behavior is really a reflection of their own inner fear. And so we want to remember that. So the form of the guilt that we project onto other people is irrelevant. Whether, that we're upset with somebody or we don't like them because of their behavior, we have to understand that that's just their behavior, but we're taking our own self-hate and justifying it by them. People are allowed to be afraid, and people, are going to behave poorly, but we can see them differently. But regarding special hate relationships, we want to pay attention to our own feeling good about hating somebody else and feeling justified about that. We could never be justified in hating anybody. We might see the behavior, we might see the form, but we have to look past that. And we want to own how we feel about it and recognize that that person's afraid and their behavior is poor, their behavior is unkind, but we are at choice to reinterpret what we're seeing here, which is forgiveness, and not jumping into their classroom. Doing what we need to do as a parent, as a colleague. You might have to terminate somebody from their job. You might have to put somebody in jail. You have to look beyond the form to the fear. Instead of being stuck in justifying your own self-hate that we projected onto them and justifying it by their behavior. Now, that's not easy to do. I have had people in my life that have certainly gotten under my skin, even though I understand everything I'm saying in this video. It's not about not feeling frustrated or annoyed, and boy, do we want to have other people responsible. But we want to have other people responsible for the cruelty in this world because we feel we're getting rid of it. Because at the mind level, within the dream, we feel responsible for killing God in order to get our separation, our independence. But we don't want to look at that because we still want our independence. But that guilt and fear, at least at this projected level of the world of time and space, seeps out of us again. And we project that all over. And ultimately, that's what special hate is that it's a projection of our own self-hate. And it can be hard to swallow. Because going back to my own example, I don't do that perfectly, what I'm saying here. But what I do try to do and have the willingness to do is to say, this is about me, not them. Even as I may terminate them if they're employees, or if I'm a police officer and I have to do this or that, or if I'm a parent. But it's the mindset that we want to approach everybody with, so that our attitude with them is not punitive. That there's a kindness that can come out, even as we terminate somebody from their job because of poor quality work, or we put somebody in jail. And even if somebody attacks us, viciously, we're going to have feelings about it, but the attitude that we have about it, if it's coming from the love within us, the Holy Spirit, the right teacher, we may still cry, but if we have that attitude, on one level, they're going to experience that peace as well. That's how we end up being a teacher in many ways, because, it may not be immediately visible to them, but that's a gift we give to them by not seeing them as separate, by looking past their fear. And that gift of forgiveness is held for them on levels that we can't necessarily know about, but when they're ready to accept it, they'll accept it. This lifetime or 100 years or who knows. But it doesn't really matter. Because again, from the Course's teachings, who gives a gift to somebody and then waits around to tell them how to use it? So, understanding special hate relationships, which seem to be black and white, is that someone's done something bad and I'm justified in attacking them, but remembering that we want to look past the form and not use their behavior to justify our hate, because if we're doing that, we're projecting our own self-hate. And that's what we want to remember. Because everybody in this world is afraid. Everybody in this world has this same self-loathing, self-hate. And by putting you down, they seem to elevate themselves because they're projecting their own stuff. So that's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle. Now, we can't control anybody else's, perception of us and so on, but we can understand what's going on. And it's in that understanding, at least intellectually at first, that will eventually translate into an experience of peace. And that's why it's a process. But we want to at least have the willingness to have an experience and work on that process, because continuing to justify our attack on people and saying they are the bad people will only keep us stuck, because that clearly demonstrates we don't see our brothers and sisters as one. And therefore, we want to be in this world with that kind of loving attitude, even as we are fully human and doing what we need to do. So that's the brief synopsis on special hate, and whether, again, we're hating somebody else, or we hate our bodies, or I hate my car because I got a flat tire. It's the same dynamic. You just can't do this a little bit. Always pay attention to what we're projecting out. And when we catch ourselves doing that, simply forgive yourself. Be gentle. Don't feel guilty for feeling guilty. Just look. And it's in that looking that over time that we'll find ourselves slowly holding on to things a little less longer and smiling a little more often, because we'll begin to remove layers and we'll say, oh, I get it. I see what's happening here. I've seen this movie before and it doesn't serve me, so I'm gonna change the channel and I'm gonna look at this movie with love. And that is the road to peace. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you find it interesting, please feel free to hit a like, and if you like the videos that I'm putting forth, I appreciate you subscribing, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video, which will be about special love. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.